Here we are again, ready to dive into another section of the book Why Jesus by Bishop Will Willimon. Today we look at chapters 3 and 4. And in chapter 3, Willimon challenges us to think of Jesus as a storyteller, but not just any storyteller, but specifically someone who tells stories that are parables. And Willimon even suggests that parables are somewhat akin to jokes in the sense that sometimes rather than meant to explain something like we wish they would, sometimes they leave us with confused ideas, sometimes they mix us up, sometimes we don't know what to make of the parables, and sometimes the parables cause us to dive into looking for the worldview that God would have us see instead of a simple explanation or a tidying up of some kind of moral or ethic solution that we might wish the parables would give us. So a lot of times, Willimon says that the parables really are characterized by this unexplainable feeling that sometimes we just don't know 100% what to make of the parables. So that much like Willimon is encouraging us to get lost in the question of why Jesus in his own writing, a lot of times Jesus' parables that he told and that are recorded in the different Gospels are an invitation to get lost in the way that God views our relationships with God, our relationships with one another, and God's relationship with the world. So often we find ourselves trying to see who is it that we identify with in these parables, but often that can become frustrating because sometimes it seems as if the parables don't give us any easy person to identify with, and even when we try to figure out what the parable is trying to say, we come up a bit short sometimes. And Willimon actually offers us some insights that your facilitator today will tell you that he believes we find from Jesus' characteristic storytelling, that we come to know several things about our faith in Jesus and in God, and also about what Jesus has to say about God through the parables. And so in a little while, after you read a bit of this chapter and do a little searching through a parable that Willimon opens the chapter with, then your facilitator will share some of those insights that Willimon believes that Jesus, the storyteller, gives us. And then in this fourth chapter, Willimon presents us with Jesus, the party person. And if it's the parables that sort of leave us confused sometimes about what Jesus is trying to teach about God, then it was the encounters with the person of Jesus that many people had in his day when he was living on earth and interacting with people that made them question everything that they understood about the goodness of people and the goodness of God. And if the stories of Jesus were mystifying, then Jesus' propensity to hang out with and even party with, as Willimon put it, the wrong people in the wrong places at the wrong times, he really mystified those people that wanted to get a simple answer on what it was that Jesus was up to in the world around them. And so the scriptures are full of stories of Jesus going to gatherings and parties and dinners with folks that other people asked, why would this man, if he's close to God, be around these people? Why would this rabbi who proposes to teach, even in the name of God, do these things? And so it was quite a scandal for somebody who people were starting to think of as the Son of God or as akin to God, to be seemingly hanging out with the wrong people, to be seemingly going into a life that seemed a bit indulgent at times, maybe even a bit sensuous, with eating and drinking in the midst of lots of people. And Willimon casts this all at the beginning of the chapter by saying it's important for us to remember that Jesus, the tradition has held up time and again, was both fully human and fully divine. And what does it mean to think of Jesus in that way? And what does it say to encounter the Jesus who in body went to the margins often, but also went to the places that people just didn't think he should go, and hung out with people that they didn't think he should be hanging out with. and even enjoyed himself in ways that people sometimes asked, why would he be doing that? For instance, he was questioned at times by the religious leaders why his followers didn't fast as much as John the Baptist's followers, why they seemed to indulge in food and wine at different times, and why they would go to these places where it didn't seem like they should properly go. And so even Jesus' life, not just his stories, sort of upend the expectations of those that are living around him. So today, you'll also be challenged to think a bit about what it was for Jesus to be a partier, sometimes in the wrong places, and what it might mean for us to be people who are gathered around the table, when we gather around even the communion table in bread and wine or juice for many of us who are Methodist. What it means to maybe be party people like Jesus was. What would it mean for us to embrace his kind of table fellowship beyond even the limits of what some might consider proper? So I encourage you to dive deep today as you think about Jesus the storyteller and Jesus the party person, and I hope your discussions continue to be fruitful as you stretch your minds to think about, and as you stretch your hearts to reach into what it means to have faith in this person and this God that we are drawn to in Jesus Christ.